Rain poured relentlessly that night, drumming against the rusted rooftops of a small, forgotten African village. The wind howled through the acacia trees like an ancient spirit mourning the loss of something sacred. In a modest mud house at the edge of the settlement, a widow named Mama Abney sat beside a flickering lantern, her wrinkled hands wrapped around a bowl of watery soup. The night was cold, her stomach empty, but her heart, though weary, was still warm. Then came the knock. It was faint at first, hesitant. She froze, spoon halfway to her lips. No one came to her home anymore, not since her husband's death had left her in poverty and silence. But the knocking returned, sharper this time, urgent, desperate. Slowly, she rose and opened the door. There, in the pale wash of the moonlight, stood two tiny figures, twins. A boy and a girl, drenched to the bone, trembling, eyes wide with fear. They couldn't have been more than 5 years old. The boy clutched a ragged doll, the girl a wooden bead necklace. Behind them, the storm raged on, but their silence was louder than thunder. "Please, help us," the boy whispered. Mama Abney's eyes softened. She looked out into the darkness, expecting to see someone, anyone, who might explain. But there was no one, only the road, and the rain washing away all traces of footprints. Without hesitation, she brought them inside. She gave them her blanket, her last piece of bread, and whispered prayers over their shivering forms as they slept beside her small fire. From that moment on, her life changed. The village gossip, of course. Some said the twins were cursed, left behind by spirits or criminals. Others claimed Abney had gone mad, filling her empty house with strange children to ease her loneliness. But she didn't care. She raised them as her own, Kofi and Amma. She named them, teaching them kindness, humility, and resilience. Years passed. The twins grew into bright, beautiful souls. Kofi had his father's courage and his sister's laughter. Amma had her mother's heart and a spark in her eyes that lit up any room. Together, they brought color back into Mama Abney's world. But fate, as always, had its own plans. One dry season afternoon, a black car arrived in the village, a rare and unsettling sight. Two men in crisp suits stepped out, their eyes scanning the dusty street until they found Mama Abney's hut. The younger twin, Kofi, was chopping firewood nearby. The men approached him, murmured something, and handed him a sealed letter. When Abney opened it, her hands trembled. It was an offer, a wealthy couple from the city claiming to be the twins' biological relatives. They wanted to take them away, promising education, comfort, and a better life. She knew she couldn't refuse. Her love was deep, but poverty was merciless. With a heavy heart, she let them go. She stood at the dusty road as the car drove away, the twins' faces pressed to the window, tears mixing with dust. They promised to return. They never did. For years, silence filled her home again. Seasons came and went. The acacia trees bloomed and withered, and her hair turned white. The villagers forgot the story of the widow and her twins. But she never did. Every sunset, she would sit outside her hut, eyes fixed on the horizon, whispering, "One day, they'll come home." Then, 25 years later, they did. It was a calm afternoon. The air was golden with the scent of harvest, and children laughed in the distance. Mama Abney, now frail but still strong in spirit, was sitting by her doorway when a sleek car rolled up the same dusty path. Two figures stepped out, a tall man in a fine suit and a graceful woman draped in a silk shawl. Their faces were older, sharper, but something about them pulled at her memory. Then she saw the necklace, the same wooden bead necklace the little girl once wore. Her heart stopped. "Amma," she whispered. "Kofi." Tears filled their eyes as they rushed to her, falling to their knees. "Mama Abney," the woman cried, her voice trembling. "We came home." She held them, trembling as the years of longing melted into that single moment of reunion. The village gathered, astonished. The twins, now successful and radiant, had returned. But beneath their smiles lingered something deeper, a heaviness. That night, after the laughter and feasting, when the moon rose high, Kofi sat beside the old woman. His voice was soft, but his words were heavy. "Mama, there's something we never told you." Her wrinkled hand found his. "My son, what burden weighs your heart?" He exchanged a glance with Amma, who nodded silently. Then he continued, "The people who took us, they weren't our family. They lied. They wanted us for something else." Ebony's heart skipped a beat. "What do you mean?" Kofi's eyes darkened. "They used us, Mama. For years, we were nothing but tools in their hands, made to serve their ambitions, their greed. We escaped only when we were grown. We searched for you everywhere, but the village had changed. We thought you were gone." Amma added, tears glistening, "We built our lives from nothing, but we never forgot you. Every good thing we did, every kindness we showed, it was because of what you taught us." The widow's heart swelled with both sorrow and pride. She cupped their faces gently. "Then my kindness was never wasted," she said. "Even pain can bear fruit if the roots are love." But as the night deepened, Kofi's tone shifted again. His voice dropped to a whisper. "Mama, there's more. Before we escaped, we found something. Something that changes everything you ever believed about that night we came to your door." Mama Ebony's breath caught. The fire crackled softly. Outside, the wind carried the echo of forgotten spirits. Alma reached into her bag and pulled out an old, weathered envelope, yellowed with age. "We found this among their papers. It has your husband's name on it." Ebony stared, frozen. Her husband, dead for nearly 30 years. "My husband," she whispered. "But how?" Kofi nodded. "Mama, we think he knew them. We think the night we arrived, it wasn't by chance." The air thickened. The lantern flickered. And somewhere in the darkness beyond their small circle of light, the truth, long buried, waited to rise again. Mama Ebony's fingers trembled as she reached for the envelope, her heartbeat echoing in her ears. The paper was brittle, the ink faded, but her name and her husband's handwriting were unmistakable. She brushed her thumb across it, the way one might trace the memory of a loved face. The room seemed to shrink around her, the air charged with ghosts of the past. "I buried him with my own hands," she whispered, eyes glistening. "How could this be?" Alma looked down, her voice trembling. "We don't understand everything either, Mama, but the people who took us, they had a connection to your husband before he died. One of them kept this letter locked away, as if it was something dangerous." Kofi leaned forward, his jaw tense. "We think it might explain why we ended up at your door that night." For a long moment, no one spoke. The only sound was the crackle of the fire and the chirping of crickets outside. Then, with a deep breath, Ebony opened the letter. The writing was shaky, rushed, like someone had written it in fear. Her husband's voice came alive in her mind as she read. "My beloved Ebony, if you are reading this, then my mistakes have found me. I was involved in something I did not understand, something that has brought danger to our family. The twins, they are not ours, but they are innocent. If fate is kind, they will find you. Protect them, for they carry something the world must not claim. Forgive me." The widow's lips parted, her breath unsteady. The room swayed slightly as she gripped the letter tighter. "The twins, not ours," she murmured. "He knew all along?" Kofi's eyes softened. "Mama, you are our only mother. Blood never raised us. You did." But Ebony barely heard him. The words in the letter burned into her soul. Her husband, whom she'd mourned for decades, had died with secrets buried beneath his love. She could almost see him now, that night before he left and never returned. His eyes had been heavy, his touch distant. He'd told her he was traveling to the next town for trade. But what if it had been more than that? What if everything she believed about his death was a lie? Alma reached for her hand. "We've been searching for the truth ever since we found this. We think the people who took us, Mr. and Mrs. Adeyemi, were part of something powerful. They mentioned a foundation, but behind it was something darker. They were hunting for something our birth parents left behind, something connected to this village, and maybe to you." Ebony looked at her, confusion clouding her face. "Connected to me? I am only a widow with an old house and a worn-out heart. What could they want from me?" Kofi exchanged a glance with Alma. "That's what we came to find out. Before we left the city, we received a message, an anonymous one. It said, 'Return to where it began.' The widow knows the key. We didn't understand, but we knew it meant you. The old woman's eyes widened. She looked around her small hut, the cracked clay walls, the handmade baskets, the worn-out mat she'd slept on for years. What secret could possibly be buried in such a place? Then something stirred in her memory. A moment, decades old, the night her husband disappeared. She had woken to find him digging behind the house, under the old mango tree. When she'd asked what he was doing, he'd smiled faintly and said, "Planting something that will feed our future." Her hands went cold. "The mango tree," she whispered. Kofi frowned. "What about it?" She rose slowly, her knees trembling with age. "Your father, before he left, he buried something there. I thought it was just a seed, but maybe it was something else." The three of them stepped outside. The night air was cool and thick with crickets. The mango tree stood tall, its roots gnarled and wide like the fingers of time itself. Ebony stood before it, her breath catching. "This tree has been here longer than anything else I have. It fed me when I had nothing." Kofi grabbed a small spade from beside the hut, and together they began to dig. The soil was hard, dry, reluctant to give up its secrets. But as they dug deeper, something solid clinked against metal. Kofi knelt, brushing away dirt until a small iron box emerged, rusted, bound with a corroded latch. He looked up at Ebony, whose hands shook as she reached for it. This is what he buried. They brought it inside and placed it by the fire. The box creaked as Kofi pried it open with a knife. Inside lay a faded photograph of Ebony and her husband, taken long before his death, and beneath it, a stack of old documents wrapped in oilcloth. A golden pendant glimmered faintly in the firelight, shaped like two entwined leaves. Amma lifted the pendant carefully. "I've seen this symbol before," she said, eyes narrowing. "It was on the seal of the Adeyemi Foundation." Ebony's brow furrowed. "The same people who took you?" Kofi nodded grimly. "Yes, and that means your husband was somehow tied to them." He unfolded one of the papers, a contract of sorts, written in both English and a language Ebony didn't recognize. At the top were signatures, one of them her husband's. But the contents were disturbing, mentions of experiments, inheritance, and guardianship. Ebony felt her stomach twist. "What did he do?" Amma's voice softened. "Maybe he was trying to protect us. Mama, maybe that's why he sent us to you." The lantern flickered as silence swallowed the room again. The air felt heavy, charged with the weight of generations. Ebony looked into the fire, seeing her husband's face there, half light, half shadow. She didn't know whether to hate him or forgive him. Then, outside, a sudden flash of headlights sliced through darkness. Kofi stood abruptly. Who would come this late? Ebony's heart skipped. The car stopped near the gate, and the low hum of an engine filled the quiet night. Two figures stepped out, both in dark coats, moving with purpose. Amma's hand went to her mouth. "Mom, it's the Adeyemis?" Ebony asked, her voice trembling. "No," Amma whispered, her eyes narrowing. "They're sons." The door creaked open before they could react. A tall man with cold eyes and a calm, deliberate voice stepped forward. "We meet again, Kofi. Amma, I see you found what was ours." Kofi stood between him and Ebony. "You mean ours, not yours. She raised us. You had no right." The man smiled faintly, though there was no warmth in it. "Your sentimentality is touching, but you have something that doesn't belong to you. That pendant," he nodded toward Amma's hand, "and the documents, it all belongs to the foundation." Ebony's voice was soft but steady. "My husband gave his life for this. Whatever truth he died for, you won't take it again." The man's expression hardened. "Your husband made a deal he couldn't keep. That pendant holds a key, something buried long before your time. We've come to claim it." Kofi clenched his fists, but Amma stepped back, her eyes darting toward the mango tree visible through the window. She whispered, "Mama, there's more buried there. I saw another mark when we dug." The widow's breath hitched. "Another?" Kofi turned to her, realization dawning. He hid more than one thing. "The pendant isn't the key, it's a map." The men inside exchanged sharp glances. "You shouldn't have said that," one of them hissed. The night pulsed with tension. The fire crackled, casting shadows on their faces. Outside, the wind began to rise again, as though the earth itself was remembering, and deep beneath the roots of the old mango tree, something ancient stirred, something that had waited 25 long years to be found. The night split open with thunder as the men lunged forward, their shadows stretching like claws across the walls of the small hut. Kofi moved first, instinct taking over, blocking their path while Alma grabbed Mama Ebony's trembling hand. The widow's frail body shook, but her spirit did not. The firelight flickered violently, casting a golden glow of the pendant on the table, the mysterious emblem that had drawn danger back to her doorstep after 25 long, quiet years. "Stay behind me," Kofi warned, his voice steady but laced with rage. The taller man smirked. "Bravery doesn't change blood, boy. You were never meant to be her son." Kofi's eyes blazed. "Maybe not by blood," he said, his voice sharp as a blade, "but her love made me more her son than you could ever understand." For a brief moment, silence reigned. The storm outside howled, wind rushing through cracks in the hut, carrying the sound of the past. The cries of the twins at night long ago, the echo of Ebony's prayers whispered over their sleeping forms. And then, with a sudden crash, lightning illuminated everything. The iron box, the pendant, the letter, and something else. A faint gleam beneath the floorboards. Alma's eyes caught it first. "Mama, there's something else under the house." Before anyone could move, the door flew open again, slamming against the wall. A gust of wind extinguished the fire. In the darkness, the men shouted, shoving past Kofi. But he was faster. His hand found the spade they'd used earlier, and with a single swing he struck the lamp, sending shards of glass and sparks across the room. The flames roared back to life. The two strangers stumbled back, startled by the sudden blaze. "Go, Alma," he shouted. "Find what's hidden." Alma dropped to her knees, pulling away a loose plank. Beneath it lay a small metal case, older and more corroded than the first. She reached for it, her heart pounding, but the moment her fingers brushed it, a sound like a whisper filled the air, soft, melodic, almost human. It wasn't a voice she recognized, but it felt familiar. The pendant around her neck began to glow faintly, its golden light pulsing in rhythm with her heartbeat. The taller intruder froze. His eyes widened. "The key has awakened." Kofi turned sharply. "What are you talking about?" But the man only shook his head. "You have no idea what you've touched. That pendant isn't a map. It's a seal. It was never meant to be opened." The room grew colder. Even the fire seemed to bend away from the pendant's glow. Alma stared down at the box in her hands, the metal humming softly as if alive. She looked at Mama Ebony, whose face was pale but calm. "Open it," Ebony whispered. Kofi hesitated. "Mama, what if—" "Whatever it is," she interrupted gently, "it was left in my home for a reason. Secrets cannot heal when buried." Her words carried a strength that silenced them all. Alma slowly lifted the latch. The lid creaked open, and a gust of air rushed out, swirling like mist, carrying with it the faint scent of earth and rain. Inside the box lay an old parchment wrapped in silk and an object wrapped in leather, small, round, and carved with the same twin-leaf emblem. Alma lifted it carefully into the firelight. It was an orb made of crystal, but inside it danced faint golden light, swirling like a living flame. The moment it touched the air, the pendant at her neck flared brighter, and the wind outside seemed to bow in reverence. The men stepped back instinctively. Even they could feel the power radiating from it. "What is that?" Kofi whispered. Ebony's eyes glistened as memory returned to her, slow and aching. "I've seen this before," she murmured. "The night before my husband died. He came home with this in his hands. He said it was hope, something meant to protect, not destroy. But he was afraid. He said men would come for it, men blinded by greed." She looked at the strangers. "You're those men, aren't you? You come in your father's footsteps, still chasing what you don't understand." The taller man clenched his jaw. That orb was created to sustain life, to heal, but it was never meant for one person alone. Your husband stole it from the Foundation's research. He doomed them all. Ebony shook her head. "No, he saved the innocent. You call it research. I call it suffering. He told me they used children. Experiments. You want to turn kindness into power. The truth hung in the air like lightning waiting to strike. Amma held the orb tightly. Its warmth seeped into her palms, flowing through her veins, flooding her heart with strange familiarity. "It's alive," she whispered. "It feels like home." Her words made the men flinch. "Put it down," one shouted. "You don't know what it can do." But Ebony rose slowly, her frail frame seeming taller than ever before. Her voice was calm, commanding. "Let her hold it. It belongs to her now. Perhaps it always did." The men lunged forward, but the moment they crossed the threshold of life independent, a shockwave rippled through the room. The fire flared into a pillar of gold. The strangers were thrown backward, hitting the ground with cries of pain. Alma gasped, her eyes glowing faintly as the orb pulsed brighter. The pendant on her neck melted into her skin like liquid light. Ebony's wrinkled face illuminated in awe. "It has chosen," she whispered. "The light has chosen its guardian." Kofi rushed to Alma's side as she trembled, her breath shallow. The air hummed with energy, the wind outside roaring in circles around the house. For a moment, everything, past, present, future, seemed to merge into one. The mango tree outside bent under the force, its roots glowing faintly in the earth. Then, just as suddenly, the light faded. The men who had come for the artifact lay unconscious on the ground, their dark coats torn, their arrogance stripped away. Alma opened her eyes slowly, clear, bright, filled with tears. "Mama," she whispered, her voice soft. "I saw him." Ebony blinked. "Who, my child?" "Our father," Alma said, still trembling. "He was standing beside you in the light. He said he was sorry. He said he couldn't protect us, but he trusted you would." Ebony's tears spilled freely. "Oh, my love," she whispered, looking toward the window where the wind whispered to the mango leaves. "You kept your promise." The night was still now, the storm easing into silence. The moon broke through the clouds, bathing the earth in silver. The pendant's glow had dimmed, but something unseen lingered. Peace, perhaps, or destiny fulfilled. Kofi stood, breathing heavily, staring down at the unconscious men. "What do we do with them?" Ebony's gaze hardened. "Let them wake to their own emptiness. They came searching for power, but they will leave with nothing but the memory of what goodness looks like." Alma turned to her, her face serene but radiant with newfound strength. "The orb, what should I do with it?" The old widow smiled faintly. "Guard it, but don't hide it. It's not meant to be buried. Its power is not in secrecy, but in kindness. That is what your father tried to teach, what they never understood." For a moment no one spoke. The silence was sacred, the air thick with gratitude and wonder. The first light of dawn began to touch the horizon, painting the sky in shades of amber and rose. Ebony looked at her children, no longer lost, no longer haunted by questions of blood or belonging. "You were brought to me by destiny," she said softly, "not by accident. My act of kindness was never just mercy. It was the beginning of something far greater. And now what was buried has bloomed." Kofi took her hand, pressing it against his heart. "You saved us, Mama. Twice." The widow smiled faintly. "No, my son. You saved me." Alma looked out the window at the mango tree, now glistening under the sunrise. "This land holds more than memories," she murmured. "It holds promises." As the dawn grew brighter, the men outside stirred, dazed and fearful. They looked at Ebony and her children with silent awe, as if realizing that what they had tried to possess could never be taken by force. Without a word, they climbed into their car and drove away, their headlights fading into the golden morning. The air felt lighter now, freer. The village began to stir, roosters crowing, distant voices rising. The world was waking, unaware of the miracle that had just unfolded beneath their sky. Mama Ebony sank back into her chair, exhausted but at peace. Kofi knelt beside her, holding her hand. Alma stood behind them, the orb still faintly glowing in her palms. The widow looked up at her once more and said, "Now, my child, the world will need your light." And as the first rays of the sun broke through the window, spilling over their faces, the widow smiled faintly. because she knew her husband's prophecy had come true. What was planted beneath the mango tree so many years ago had not just been hope, it had been destiny, rooted in love, watered by sacrifice, and reborn through kindness. And though the world would never know the full story, somewhere deep within the earth, under the shade of that ancient mango tree, the soil whispered her name with gratitude, Mama Abney, the widow whose kindness changed everything.